Welcome back, goblins and goblinettes. Destined Goblin here, and once again, you are back in the kitchen with Goblin. Today we're going to do something a little bit different than some of the recipes that I've been doing lately. Most of the recipes, if you've seen these videos, I've been doing Blue Apron or HelloFresh recipes. This one's a little bit different. You can see I've got my slow cooker turned on there and kind of preheating a little bit. Yes, we are going to do a slow cooker recipe here. This one comes to me from my friend Sean. Now, Sean and Sheila are a couple that are friends of mine, and I actually work with Sheila, and at work we had a little potluck luncheon kind of thing, and Sheila brought in this recipe that I thought was fantastic, and I found out that it was her husband Sean that made this item. He actually found the recipe on Pinterest, and then he added kind of his own little touches to it. And so I asked him for the recipe, and he was kind enough to share that. So we are calling this Sean's Chicken Crockpot thing, because we're not exactly sure what the original name of it is or who the original recipe gets credited to, but we're going to credit this to Sean. And it's a pretty basic recipe, pretty simple. It really only takes a couple of ingredients here. So you're going to need 3 to 4 chicken breasts. I've got 3 here. Sean did not specifically state in the recipe to season them, but I always season everything, and I like to kind of season with salt and pepper several times throughout the cooking process as well. I think it brings out a little bit deeper flavor. So I've added some salt and pepper to my chicken breasts. It also calls for a bottle of Kraft creamy Italian dressing. Now, Sean didn't specify what size bottle of dressing, but this was the only size that I could find. So I'm not sure if these come in larger sizes, but this is the 16-ounce size. Then we're going to need 6 ounces, a 6-ounce container of grated Parmesan cheese. I got this at Walmart. This is the Great Value brand, and this is actually 8 ounces, so this is a little bit more than the recipe calls for. But you know what I've found with cheese is that it's never a bad thing to add a little bit more, so we're going to put this whole thing in. And then an 8-ounce block of cream cheese. And of course, we're using Philadelphia brand because why wouldn't you? I think this is the best cream cheese out there. There are some things that I don't mess around with generic brands or anything like that. Cream cheese is one of them. I think Philadelphia does the best job as far as cream cheese goes. So I've got the slow cooker preheated. Now, just a couple of notes about slow cooker cooking. And I don't do a ton of it. I don't make a ton of things with slow cookers, but I have done several things. And a couple of little tricks that I've learned, it always helps to kind of preheat your machine before you actually put anything in. It also helps, at least in my case here, I feel like you really kind of have to know your machine. So you will get to know what settings your slow cooker works best on. And I have found that even if a particular recipe calls for everything being on low, for low throughout the entire cooking process, my machine seems to work better if I turn it up to high for a while and then really cook it for the most extended time on that high setting. So you always want to start your slow cooker on high to begin with, regardless of what the recipe says. That will bring everything up to temperature and get it all started with that cooking process. And then if you do need to lower it, you can do it at that point. But again, with some experimentation, you're going to find out with what your particular machine operates best at. So you kind of have to just kind of play around with it. But, you know, experimentation with a slow cooker is not a bad thing, because then you get more things that you can eat, more different recipes that you can try. So we'll go ahead and start the process here. We'll move over to the slow cooker and get things really going here. Now, I should also mention that the original recipe apparently called for this to be added to pasta, or to be either pasta added to the chicken itself, or to be served over the top of pasta. But what we're going to do here is we're actually going to serve this on hamburger buns. That was how Sheila presented it at that luncheon that we had, and I thought it made for a great, a kind of a pulled chicken type of sandwich. So I think this turns out really, really great, and it's a really good way to serve it on those hamburger buns. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we've got our machine preheated, and you can kind of tell that when you feel the machine. If you feel that it's nice and warm at the base, then you know you're ready to go. Okay, we are going to add half of our bottle of dressing into the bottom of our slow cooker. Then we're going to put our chicken in. Gonna get it all nice and coated in there. Make sure they've got a good snug fit in that slow cooker. Then we're gonna put the rest of the dressing in there. We'll pour that right over the top of that chicken. Get it all nice and soaked, covered up with that dressing. This is so easy. Slow cooker meals in general are so easy to make, and it's nice that you can kind of set things up in the morning, head off to work, come back later, and your dinner is ready. Then we're going to sprinkle that Parmesan cheese in there. Get that all over the top. And again, the recipe calls for 6 ounces of that Parmesan cheese, but we're going to put the whole thing in there. It's only 2 extra ounces. There we go. And we'll give that a little bit of a stir, break up some of those clumps of that Parmesan cheese. Get that all mixed in together. Okay, now the last thing that we have to put in is the cream cheese. However, Sean recommends letting everything cook for a couple of hours before you add the cream cheese. So we're going to put our top on, and the most important thing to remember about slow cooker cooking is that the fewer number of times you remove the lid, the better everything is going to cook. Because every time you take that lid off, you're losing some of that heat that has built up in there, and it kind of slows the cooking process. So we're going to keep this on high for a little while. We're going to let things cook for a couple of hours, then we're going to add that cream cheese. All right, we've been cooking for a couple of hours now, so now we're going to go ahead and add our cream cheese. Be careful when you take these tops off, they can get a little bit warm. We're going to go ahead and put our cream cheese in there. And we'll kind of stir that up a little bit, give everything a nice stir while we're in here. Now again, your option, depending on how your slow cooker operates. You may want to turn down here to low. You might want to go to a medium setting. I'm going to let mine continue to cook on high because ultimately what we're wanting to achieve here is we want to get that chicken soft enough that we can shred it with a couple of forks and make sort of a pulled chicken type, like a pulled pork. We'll do a pulled chicken type of a dish here. So get that all stirred up. Put the top back on, and we'll let that keep cooking. All right, now we've been cooking for a total of about 4 hours. So now we're gonna take the lid off, and we're gonna take a couple of forks, and we're gonna see if the chicken is ready to shred. And oh yeah, it's falling apart here. So we're gonna break this up and just shred this as much as possible. And we'll kind of stir it all up in those juices as we do that. Okay, now remember the recipe called for a total of 4 to 5 hours cooking, and it really suggested low. However, I can tell you again, you want to know your slow cooker. I've had this on high the whole time for about 4 hours, and to me it is at the perfect degree of doneness right now because we're really getting everything to shred easily. So I've gone for that whole 4 hours on high, and then once I get this all kind of shredded up, kind of broken up. Then I'm going to give it a nice big stir. And then I'm going to turn it down to, I think I'll probably go to medium on this. And I'm going to let this go for a little bit longer and just let some of those juices absorb even further into that chicken. And I'm going to do a little taste test here just to kind of check the seasoning, see if I need to add any salt or pepper here. I think we're perfect as far as the seasonings go. Put the lid back on. I'm going to turn it down to medium, and I'm going to let it cook for about another hour. And there it is, Sean's crockpot chicken thing. You can see how nice it comes out of that crock pot. I had some wheat rolls here, so some wheat hamburger buns. Cook up a couple of sides, you have a whole meal. I've got some Brussels sprouts, I've got some rice. But this is the star of the show right there. Again, the original recipe calls for putting this either in with some pasta, mixing some pasta in with it, or serving it on top of some pasta. You can see it's nice and sloppy there, just like you would expect from pulled chicken. And if you like pulled chicken sandwiches, pulled pork sandwiches, that kind of a thing, this is a little bit of a variation on that, because usually you're going to see a lot of barbecue sauce as a base for those kinds of sandwiches, some kind of a red sauce, but this one with a little bit more of a white sauce with that creamy Italian dressing, and then that cream cheese in there as well. Let's give this a taste. Oh yeah, that is very flavorful, very messy, as you can see. Get yourself a fork, because you are going to need to pick up some of those bits that drop there. But it's fantastic. You get the flavor of that dressing really comes through. And then the cheese, you can taste especially the Parmesan cheese in there in every bite. Nice and creamy, nicely cooked, very tender. Check that out. Total cooking time, about 5 hours on this one. I did most of my cooking on high, but you may have to adjust based on your machine. Try that one for yourself. It's pretty easy, only a few ingredients, and I will catch you next time.